There comes a moment when the noise of the world fades, and you're left staring at the truth that almost nobody wants to face. Nobody really cares. Not about your excuses. Not about your pain. Not about how tired you are, or how hard you've been trying. At first, this truth feels brutal. It hits you like a punch to the soul. You feel invisible, forgotten, unappreciated. But that's only the beginning, because if you stay with this realization long enough, it starts to transform you. You begin to see that what once felt like rejection is actually freedom. You no longer have to live for the opinions, validation, or approval of others. You can finally live for yourself. Marcus Aurelius said, "The tranquility that comes when you stop caring what they say, or think, or do. Only what you do. That's the moment you stop being controlled and start becoming unstoppable." This is the Stoic awakening, when you stop waiting for someone to care and start taking full ownership of your mind, your growth, and your destiny. Part 1. The freedom in being ignored. When you realize that no one truly cares, it stings. You look around, expecting empathy, and find silence. You wait for encouragement and receive indifference. You try to share your struggle, but people are too absorbed in their own. And at first, you interpret this as abandonment. You feel isolated, as though life has singled you out for hardship. But slowly, if you have the courage to sit with that pain, something inside you begins to shift. You start to understand that the world's indifference is not cruelty, it's clarity. It's a reminder that you were never meant to rely on external approval for your internal peace. When no one cares, you are finally free to move without performance. You stop curating your life to impress others. You stop posting, pretending, or seeking applause. You start doing things simply because they matter to you. That's when the real power awakens, the power of self-direction. No one is watching, no one is praising, and yet you still show up. You still train, still learn, still rise, because the purpose is internal. Epictetus said, "Seek not the good in external things, seek it in yourself." That's the foundation of the Stoic life. The moment you realize no one is coming to save you, you start to save yourself. The chains of expectation fall off, and what replaces them is pure focus. Being ignored gives you the most valuable gift of all, solitude with purpose. You start to work in silence. You learn to value privacy over attention, and slowly, you build a kind of strength that no praise can inflate, and no insult can destroy. Part 2. Stop expecting, start executing. The greatest weight most people carry isn't failure, it's expectation. You expect people to understand you. You expect them to see your potential. You expect them to stand by you when things fall apart. But Stoicism teaches that expectation is the seed of suffering. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." Every time you imagine that someone owes you care, attention, or help, you hand them power over your emotions. You tie your peace to something you can't control. And that's the quickest path to misery. The moment you stop expecting others to care, a strange kind of peace enters your mind. You stop being disappointed because you stop placing your happiness in someone else's hands. You stop waiting for motivation and start moving without it. You begin to understand that no one is coming to remind you, to push you, or to save you. And that's exactly why you must become your own savior. When you accept that nobody cares, you stop being a victim and start being a creator. You stop blaming people for not supporting your dreams and instead build them brick by brick in silence. You realize that discipline is the highest form of self-love, and action is the only form of proof that matters. The Stoic doesn't expect the world to care. He expects himself to act. You stop talking about change, and you start embodying it. You stop needing attention, because execution becomes your therapy. When no one cares, you finally meet the strongest version of yourself, the version that acts without applause, persists without praise, and builds without validation. Part 3. Build discipline, not desire. Desire is easy. Discipline is divine. When you realize that no one cares, your desires begin to lose their power. You start to see how much of your energy was wasted chasing validation, likes, approval, comfort, attention. But none of those things ever gave you strength. They gave you temporary pleasure, but permanent weakness. Marcus Aurelius said, "If it is not right, don't do it. If it is not true, don't say it." That single sentence defines the Stoic code of discipline. It's not about passion, it's about principle. The Stoic doesn't ask, "Do I feel like it?" He asks, "Is this the right thing to do?" When nobody cares, discipline becomes your only companion. There's no audience, no praise, no recognition. Only you, your routine, and your word. And that is where greatness is built. In the unseen moments, in the quiet mornings, in the days when your motivation dies, but your commitment doesn't. Most people live enslaved by their desires. They crave comfort, entertainment, and approval. But desire is a liar. It promises happiness and delivers emptiness. The Stoic learns to break this cycle. He doesn't chase what feels good. He chases what makes him good. Every time you choose discipline over desire, you build invisible muscle. You gain something the careless world can't understand. Self-respect. You start to look in the mirror and see someone who doesn't need to be pushed, reminded, or praised. And that is when you become unstoppable. Because desire can fade overnight, but discipline endures forever. When no one cares, discipline becomes your armor, quiet, consistent, unshakable. Epictetus said, "No great thing is created suddenly." He was right. Discipline is slow, often lonely, but it forges something that no instant gratification ever can: a mind that's solid, a will that's sharp, and a soul that no chaos can move. When you live by discipline, you no longer need to talk about your goals. Your consistency will speak for you. Part 4. Turning rejection into power. Rejection used to hurt. You saw it as proof that you weren't enough. But when you embrace the Stoic mindset, rejection transforms into something else entirely. It becomes your greatest teacher. Epictetus taught, "It is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." The Stoic doesn't run from rejection. He studies it. He looks at what it reveals, about his expectations, his ego, his resilience. When someone ignores you, doubts you, or dismisses your efforts, it's easy to take it personally. But Stoicism teaches that the world's reaction says more about them than it ever will about you. You can't control who believes in you. You can only control your effort, your focus, your attitude. Rejection is simply feedback from life. It's a sign that you're still learning, still evolving, still pushing into uncomfortable places where real growth happens. Each rejection removes illusion and leaves behind only truth. And truth is the foundation of strength. The Stoic doesn't crumble under rejection. He converts it. He channels every disappointment into determination, every insult into intensity, every doubt into discipline. He becomes a master of emotional alchemy, turning the lead of failure into the gold of wisdom. When you stop caring about who accepts or rejects you, you stop being fragile. You become self-contained, self-powered, and self-driven. No one's opinion can slow your momentum anymore. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Look well into yourself. There is a source of strength which will always spring up if you will always look there." That's where power truly comes from, not from people's approval, but from your ability to stay composed when others expect you to break. Rejection is not a signal to stop. It's a test, a measure of your conviction. Every great Stoic, every thinker, every leader, every creator faced rejection, but they used it as fire, not as fuel for bitterness. When you learn to smile at rejection, it loses its control. And when you learn to grow from it, you become untouchable. Part 5. Emotional detachment, the ultimate power. There is no greater freedom than emotional control. Most people live like puppets, their strings pulled by moods, opinions, and the chaos around them. They get angry when ignored, anxious when rejected, and jealous when someone else wins. But the Stoic? He learns to detach. He doesn't suppress emotions. He masters them. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." And that's the truth. Most pain is self-created. We replay insults, overthink silence, and exaggerate problems that barely exist. Stoicism teaches you to stop reacting to everything, to pause before emotion takes control. When you realize nobody cares, you stop performing for approval. You stop explaining, proving, and defending yourself. You stop trying to make everyone understand your worth, because your worth is no longer up for debate. Detachment doesn't mean coldness. It means choosing peace over reaction. It's understanding that you can't control how others treat you, but you can always control how you respond. The Stoic mindset turns emotional chaos into clarity. When someone offends you, you don't argue. You observe. When someone disrespects you, you don't fight. You rise above it. That's power the emotional world can't comprehend. Marcus Aurelius said, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it." This means nothing can truly hurt you unless you give it permission. Imagine what happens when you take back that permission. When you no longer let anyone decide how you'll feel today. That's when you stop being a victim of circumstance and start becoming a master of your state. Emotional detachment is not indifference, it's dominance. The world still moves, people still speak, storms still come. But you remain calm, centered, untouchable. That's the energy of a Stoic, powerful because nothing external defines his inner world. Part 6. Becoming truly unstoppable. When you realize nobody cares, something inside you shifts. Forever. You stop asking, "Why me?" and start saying, "Try me." You stop hoping the world will be easy and start preparing to be unbreakable. The Stoic doesn't run from difficulty, he runs toward it. He knows that strength is not built in comfort, it's built in discomfort. Every challenge, every setback, every failure is training for the mind. Epictetus said, "Difficulties show what men are." And he was right. Your struggles reveal your strength. Most people collapse under pressure because they never trained their minds. They depend on motivation instead of mindset, comfort instead of courage. But the Stoic builds differently. He turns silence into strategy, rejection into resilience, pain into purpose. He no longer needs applause. He no longer craves recognition. He no longer waits for the world to understand him, because he understands himself. And that is the moment you become unstoppable. Not because life becomes easy, but because nothing can make you quit. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This is the Stoic law of transformation. Whatever was meant to break you becomes the very thing that builds you. When you live by this, every setback becomes fuel. Every obstacle becomes an opportunity. You no longer fear what's difficult, because difficulty is the forge that shapes your character. You don't need the world to care. You don't need sympathy, validation, or understanding. You just need one thing, the will to keep going. That's what makes you unstoppable. When you finally realize that nobody truly cares, it's not a moment of sadness. It's the beginning of your rebirth. You stop waiting to be understood, and you start understanding yourself. You stop begging for support, and you start standing alone. You stop chasing comfort, and you start building power. That's the hidden beauty in the Stoic path. You lose the world's sympathy, but you gain the strength of self-reliance. You stop living to impress others and start living to express your highest values. Seneca said, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." And he was right. We waste it seeking attention, arguing with ignorance, trying to please those who were never watching. So let the world sleep on you. Let them doubt you, ignore you, or forget you. None of it matters, because while they talk, you build. While they judge, you grow. While they wait for care, you create your own peace. That's the Stoic mindset, calm, unshakable, and disciplined in a world addicted to validation. If this message awakened something inside you, if you're ready to stop seeking approval and start building inner freedom, remember this: the moment you stop needing anyone, you become unstoppable. Subscribe for more Stoic wisdom, and keep walking the path of strength, silence, and self-mastery.